Welcome to Studio C70 at the Committee of 70. It is election day. It is election day. Finally, this is a huge election for the city of Philadelphia. You know, these odd-numbered elections are huge. I mean, local elections, judicial elections. There's just a lot happening today, especially at the city level. Voting for mayor, city council, the row offices, register of wills, sheriff, city commissioners. It's a big deal for the city. And I think what's especially interesting today is that we're going to see if the city's kind of political dynamics are changing a little bit. The city of Philadelphia is changing like a lot of American cities are, and the politics change with the people. So we are going to be interviewing folks all day long. We are kicking off the day with Emma Restrepo. Emma, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Patrick, for inviting me. Yeah.
So excited to have you here. So, Emma, we're going to be going for 15, 20 minutes or so, kind of talking about the election day and the politics of the city. Could you just start us off by giving a little bit of background about yourself, your journalism and advocacy
Thank you, Patrick.
background?
Yeah, I have been an advocate for the Latino community, and I have a radio program. The name is DosPuntos, Latinx Conversation. So what I do is invite Latinos from all countries in Latin America, and I connect the topics with what is happening here, but also what is happening in Central and South America as well.
And so can you talk a little bit about the 7th Council District race in particular is one that folks are keeping an eye on. There's and just for the folks at home, so City Council is one of the big elections that's taking place today. We have at-large council members who represent the whole city.
Many, yeah.
We have 10 council districts that folks are running for, and several of the council districts are particularly competitive. I would say the 3rd district out in West Philly is one that a lot of folks are talking about, and the 7th up in North Philly, which is where a lot of the Latinx community is.
That's true, Patrick.
Located.
This election has been very excited for the Latinx community for many reasons. One reason is, as you said, the district, the 7th, where there are a lot of Latino community living there, especially Puerto Ricans. We have 2 people running for that place. Maria Quiñones, she has been, I think, her 3rd time that she's running, and also Angel Cruz, which is a step rep. He's running for this position as well. The community wonder why this is possible, why a rep can also at the same time run for a city position, which are a little weird in politics. I will say that here in the city. It has been a little rough campaign. We know that many things happen on El Barrio, what we call El Barrio, which is the Latino area in North Philly, but don't forget that we have an interesting and big community in South Philly, which is predominantly Mexican. But anyway, with the 7th district is hard. The community is very divided. There are a lot of friction between these 2 candidates, and that affects certainly the community. One interesting thing is that when the community is talking about, not everybody, but when they are talking about the race, they don't talk too loud. They talk it in this way because some people apparently are afraid about consequences. So, and I think that is happening because the friction that there are between the 2 candidates. So, yes, so that's one of the reasons why it is very important what is happening right now in this particular election with the Latinx community. The second thing is, you saw it, we have 5 candidates running for city at large. Which is telling us a lot. It's telling us that the Latinx community is stronger than before, and we are certainly trying to get position in the city, and we want to talk. We want really to participate. There are 5 different origins. There is also important to remind people that we are, I think more than 15 countries. So people sometimes think Latinx, but they don't know that we have a lot of countries. And I think there is a Mexican person that is running, Fernando Treviño, Erika Almiron, I think she's from Guatemala, I think, Honduras. She's from Central America, Salvador, I think.
Yeah.
Salvador. We have Deja, which some people were saying she's not Latina, but the thing is she doesn't speak Spanish, but she has Latino heritage.
Yeah.
So that's different, you know, how to define when somebody is really Latinx or not,
Yeah.
or when somebody represents the Latinx community or not. And we have also Edwin Santana, he's Dominican. So it's a very interesting, there are no Puerto Ricans, as far as I remember, there are no Puerto Ricans running for city at large, but the 7th district, both are Puerto Ricans.
Right.
And also very important, not only for the Latinx community who were born here, but also for all immigrants. The second question of the ballot is about the Office of Immigrants Affairs.
Yep.
So that is very important that we really, you know, say yes, because this city, in 2016, we had the most, the higher number of immigrants in the city. People will think that Latinos were the highest population, but it's not, mostly from African continent. So, but we need to say yes, because this is a diverse city, proudly a diverse city.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are happening right now.
Yeah, and thanks for flagging that second ballot question. So the Office of Immigrant Affairs was established by executive order at least several years ago, I believe. And this office is basically responsible for helping in a whole host of ways the immigrant community in Philadelphia, which you just mentioned, is a very quickly growing segment of the population. They help with language access, help folks kind of understand and get access to the city government. And this particular proposed amendment to the charter would basically take this existing office and make it a permanent feature in city government, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And we have to do that. One of the things that they do is they call different ethnic media, diverse media, for regular meetings. So we are connected with the local government. We know what is happening, so we can really pass that information to our, readers or our people.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Yeah. And you're talking about the at-large you field a little bit. It's a diverse field.
It's
very diverse,
incredible.
and the biggest field running the Democratic primary that we've had since 1979. When again, like at that point, the city was also changing in very kind of stark and big ways.
Yeah.
So I think there's no doubt there's a connection here between the number of folks running for office and the fact the city's changing, which it's always a good thing. I can always say this with my Committee 70 hat on. It's always a good thing when we have lots of people running for office and giving the voters choices.
That's true. Especially they are young.
Yeah.
Young people, so it is new blood for the city.
Yeah. So one of the dynamics we're seeing today is a little bit of old guard, new guard, right? So there are both in the at-large races and in the district races, there are establishment-backed candidates that are backed by the city committee and generally the wards that fall into their districts, the wards across the city. And again, the third district is one of these races where we've had a lot of folks kind of paying attention to kind of see like where the winds are blowing for the city. Janie Blackwell is the establishment-backed candidate out there, and Jamie Gaudier is the challenger. So coming back to the 7th again, so Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez, she's running for re-election, and something that you got to give her credit for. She has to scrap and claw every election to keep her job, which is unusual for a lot of our district council members. A lot of our district council
Especially
members,
if you don't have the support of the party.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is, and she's
a woman.
Yeah, and so I got to tell you, I mean, she has to work a lot harder every 4 years to keep her job.
Yeah.
So can we unpack this a little bit more? So the councilwoman has never seen eye to eye with a number of the ward leaders up there, and like you just mentioned, like the community is not. It's not monolithic. Folks are from more than a dozen countries, and they're just like in other parts of the city. I mean, they're kind of like political factions. And Representative Cruz. Not only is he kind of part of a different political faction, but he is also a ward leader, right? And he has allied ward leaders who have been with him for a while. So can we talk a little bit more about like what kind of the different not parties, but the kind of different factions are that are kind of going at each other here,
well,
and then also like what is it like up there today on election day? I'm sure it's very, very intense.
Yeah, it's very intense. The community and Latinos in general, we are very intense. But the thing is, Rep Cruz, he has one of the areas that are the poorest areas in the city, and some people complain that for 20 years it has been the same, so they haven't seen really a change in that area. On the other hand, with Consul Quiñones, they see that she's working. I mean, they see her. They see her on the streets. She's working hard. You know also that the Latino culture is very macho. You know, women don't have the status that should be. So there are a lot of dynamics there that are interesting. Many people say that Cruz has a lot of power because, as you said, he's he's part of the war. Yeah. He's a state rep now. He's working for the city council, and people are thinking that, of course, if he wins, he's going to put somebody kind of like from his pocket on as a state rep. So I think the community. And you know that Latinos, according with the Broken Philly, are the poorest in the city. So we really need people that work for the Latinx community. And even though I'm saying Latinos, don't take me wrong, because Latinos, we are very diverse. We are all around the city. We are also in the suburbs. As a matter of fact, more Latinos live in the suburbs than in the city. The city is especially for people, hard workers that go to the restaurants. But we have a very poor community in North Philly. Yep. So that's the area connected with Consul Quiñones and Rep Cruz. So we really need people who work hard for our community. And I think, as I have seen, walking the streets of North Philly, people appreciate that Quiñones, she has been working very hard. Yeah. Otherwise, she wouldn't win, you know, every time, because she has not the support of the Democratic Party. So,
another thing I can easily say with my committee of 70 hat on, it is always better when the incumbents they have to work hard in a re-election year.
That's very important.
And fortunately this is folks in city council only have to run for re-election every 4 years, unlike in Congress or in the PA House running every 2 years. That's running for re-election an awful lot. Exactly. But every 4 years, you should have to scrap and claw it to stay in there.
I think the North Philly community, and sorry to interrupt you, Pat, many Puerto Ricans came after the Maria hurricane, so that's also important for elections because Puerto Ricans can vote immediately. Another fact that is very important is that people usually don't think about it. The second generation of Mexican in South Philly, they are able to vote. But the fact that the Latinx candidates or people who are in the city, they don't pay too much attention to these communities. And it is their loss. Because if they don't pay attention, these young Mexicans, Guatemalans who are citizens born here, they are not going to be connected with the city and with democracy. So I think it's really for Committee of 70, for the media, to call the attention for politicians really to pay attention to those communities. Right. Also, if you are coming from Puerto Rico, you are still very connected with the island, but you it's like you are not connected with Philadelphia. And I think it's a responsibility in double way, double direction, because they have to start connecting with the city, but also politicians have to call them, help them, invite them, and really, really connect the city. And they are not doing, especially with the Mexican community in South Philly. I think we are underestimating that community.
And what are the issues that I'd say, like the 2 to 3 issues that you hear come up most, right? And across the city as we've kind of led up to this primary election. What are voters talking about, folks in the?
You mean in general terms about the city? I will say in North Philly, drug problems. and violence. I think they are the most important issues for them. And in South Philly, the fact that these small businesses, which are very important for the city, I was reading a report for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and they came out with a report that said that there are in United States 4.4 million businesses, Latinx businesses, that are, producing 700 billions here in the United States. Yeah. So the community, even though the community sometimes they don't have papers, they have papers in the sense they are citizens in the economic sense,
right? Because
they are producing money.
Right.
People have different ways to see this, but they are producing. And that is happening with South Philly. South Philly, if you go there, it is full of little businesses, small businesses, Mexican, and is the Mexican community. And I'm astonished that politicians don't pay attention to this community. They are a vibrant community. They are putting a lot of effort in South Philly, and they don't have the same answer from the city. They have language barriers, so many times they can't connect really with all the development plans that are in South Philly, and they have to step out because they can't connect, and it is a shame because they. I think when the Mexican community arrived to the city in the 90s, especially the third, fourth generation of Italians were not willing to continue the business of the family. So the Mexican community arrived to put money and work in South Philly. And we don't enlighten that. And we have to be thankful for that with that community.
For folks who haven't been down to the South Philly before, and we're talking like the east, for the most part, the east side of Broad. It's incredibly diverse. I mean, like the Mexican community you just mentioned, but a lot of folks from East and Southeast Asia, long-time African American residents, long-time white residents, and then the newest dynamic, I don't know, the past 5 to 10 years is newer, younger, folks moving into the city from wherever they're coming, transplants from Philly. So like we have like 4 or 5 very different groups that are all kind of like living right there in the same area, in the same neighborhood, which is not happening quite in that same way across the city. Like other parts of the city are changing, and there are other diverse parts of Philadelphia for sure. But like down in South Philly, that's a particularly unusual kind of mix.
I think it's the most diverse.
I think so, as far as I can tell, like one of the most diverse. And so it'll be interesting how the politics in that neighborhood change as well. This is the first council district that Mark Squilla right now is incumbent in, and I don't think the first has generally been looked at as one of the more competitive elections, but I'm sure Councilman Squilla is well aware of the fact that his the neighborhoods in his district are changing. So here, let me ask you this. So something else that I know that you are very passionate about and that you've been following closely and working on a long time is just the way local democracy works. Right? Not only are you a journalist, but you care very much that folks are informed, that folks are engaged, and that a democracy is open and accessible and fair. So I guess my question is this: if you kind of like wave a magic wand and change just a couple things in Philly around the way our local democracy works, and it could be around elections or around the ward system or around the mayor or city council, like what do you think those most important things are that we should be talking about?
2 things, especially for the Latinx community. But one, and in general, the fact that if you are independent, you can't really participate. So I think it's very important for independent people to be able to vote today. Really vote. Because you can vote for the 3 questions, and don't get me wrong, it is very important. But I think independence, that is the good part of independence, that you have more neutral perspective, if I can say that. So we can really, help with a good decision, or at least you can make your voice heard, right? That is the idea of democracy. But if you can't do it, wait a minute, so I'm going to vote, but I can't vote, I don't understand. That's very confusing, and especially for the Latinx community, which in our countries you vote simply. It doesn't care where party you are, you just vote. And the other thing, the fact that the voting day is on Tuesdays is terrible. And I think Latinos, we are very intense, and we are very intense with politics as well. And we vote in general in a Sunday, and it's a party. There are music, there are food, there are, people are so happy because the fact that we have a democracy system, that is something, is a reason to be very happy. But in the area that you are going to vote is very quiet, very serious, very respectful. It's like,
very kind of solemn experience.
But once you left that area, it's just a party. So I think we definitely need to change that and bring that to
So many things we just do them a certain way because that's the way we've always done them, and having an election down on Tuesday is one of those. And that's something that actually we talk about and maybe lament a little bit around here. Back when the Committee of 70 was established more than a century ago, elections were much more communal, and joyous and raucous, and there was definitely good and bad to it. I mean, their turnout was much higher. Turnout was through the roof back in the day. And there were open air festivals and open air debates. It was a much bigger day. At the same time, there was rampant voter fraud and intimidation, and folks getting beaten up at the polls, and a lot of booze, like trading a vote for whiskey shots. A little bit of a wild west. So I think there might have been some stuffy kind of Committee of 70 types who pushed maybe too much for these to make put rules in place to make voting a very solemn, individualistic. I'm going to go behind the curtain and have my own moment. Which there's a balance to strike there, right, between election integrity and voter access and the kind of a joyousness. But I think it would definitely be so much better if elections were on the weekend, or even if we're stuck with them on a Tuesday, that we can kind of nudge our culture a little bit away from voting being like eating your vegetables, and more like doing something as part of your community.
That's true.
Because I think the communities, and I guess community can mean a lot of different things, that vote at a really high rate. It's not because I don't think they're being targeted specifically by campaigns or the current voting rules happen to work a little bit better for them, but they understand as a community that this is something you do, not just as an individual, but as part of your community. So whether it's part of your church or your neighborhood or your union, there are certain kind of groups that have kind of made this part of their culture.
And it's an excuse to be connected with your neighbors, but if it has that kind of sense, that party, that we can enjoy democracy, that we can enjoy that. But some of the things that you said that it would happen in the past, that happened a little bit in North Philly. People can be very rough, and especially with this friction in the District 7th, and people can be violent, and it's not good. I mean, there are a lot of corruption as well.
And I think that's something that has to be said. I mean, election fraud and voter intimidation do happen in Philadelphia from time to time, and it's isolated and specific to when they're intra-party fights. And there is a fight right now in the 7th district in particular. And I know there are allegations of voter assistance forms being used inappropriately the last election. Voter assistance forms is a document that then someone and their sister can sign if they think they need help to vote that day, whether because of a disability of some sort or they a language proficiency challenge. And the allegations that in the last cycle, this is 2015, up in North Philly, there was possibly a strange and unusually high number of voter assistance forms being used. Hopefully folks realize that the district attorney's office is out there today. I believe the attorney general has staff in the city as well.
Yes.
And folks need to call the proper authorities if they see something.
He will put people, to make sure that there are not too much corruption. And it's intimidating, Patrick. I mean, imagine, a woman who is from Puerto Rico. She just moved here, so he's not totally connected with the system, especially old generation that are more willing to vote. And they go to the machine, and it's hard to read the machine. There are a lot of information. You don't know where to press the button, so it is hard. It's again, Latin America, just take the pencil, make a cross, and put the paper. I mean, it seems obsolete, but at the end, I think it's more it's easier for people. So with that excuse, a lot of things happen in North Philly. So yeah. So for again, folks at home, the district attorney's office is out there. They have several different numbers. I mean, the main one is 215-686-9641. Find the district attorney's office on Twitter or Facebook. Their regular website. That number and a couple others are listed there. If folks anywhere across the city, if you see something that looks like it could be a potential election law violation, this is voter harassment, intimidation, election fraud, do call that number right away and let them know what you're you're seeing. If you see it, you say it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Emma, any last thoughts on the day? This is again. Well, I think it'll be a lot of folks are wondering like kind of where Philly's politics will be at the end of the day.
Very interesting, and especially again for the Latinx community. So I just want to invite everybody to vote, but especially Latinx community, my brothers, my sisters, please vote and vote yes on the question number 2.
All righty, and polls are open until 8 o'clock. If you're in line at 8 o'clock, you're allowed to vote. Get out there, and we'll be live off and on for the rest of the day. Tune on in to Studio C70 on our Facebook page. Emma, thanks so much for coming in and have a great time.